that we have come together to honor someone who is important to each and every one of us. Chris would probably have been horrified to have the spotlight on him like this, but I think in his heart, he would have been deeply moved to see so many of his cherished friends here. If the measure of a man is his friends, then Chris was a wealthy man. His impact on our lives has made us wealthy too. For Chris, his friends were his family that stretched from coast to coast. We are all his family. Marge and Jerry Shampo brought their beautiful baby boy, Chris, home to Kingston, New York. The family immediately fell in love with this wonderful boy. Later, the family moved to Attleboro, and Chris was enrolled in Cedar Brook School. During these years, there were lots of bowling, after-dinner football games, dirt bike riding on old railroad trails near their home on Main Street. Graham and Pa Katie gave the grandkids skis, boots, and poles. They spent wonderful winter days skiing the bumps at Ski Valley. These early years of skiing left him with an appreciation for skiing that lasted throughout his life. These were days of warm summer and cold winter visits to Lake Placid, staying at Art Devlin's Olympic Motel, rowing around Mirror Lake, and visiting with Great Aunt Ethel and Uncle Fred. It was in these early days that Chris also began his interest in photography that lasted many years. When he was in college, Chris couldn't believe it when Grandma Katie gave him her Chevy Impala. Black with a gorgeous red interior, he named her Black Betty. There were trips down Ocean Drive in Newport, Rhode Island to view the mansions, and once during a trip to Boston, Black Betty broke down and he had to call his dad to come and rescue him. During college, Chris could always be found with his nose in a book and a camera around his neck. He also loved all kinds of music and spent a lot of Thursday nights dancing with friends at the Lantern Lodge. He bought his used clothes from the Goodwill in Harvard Square and his books and records from the Coop. During the senior year of college, Chris met and began dating Kim. He graduated summa cum laude from Atlantic Union College with a degree in history and in English. He accepted a scholarship from the University of Chicago. The graduate program was in French, a language he spoke, read, and wrote fluently. After only a short time, he decided he wanted to pursue a career in law instead. He graduated from Boston University 3 years later and made law review. After law school, he worked for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. He made many friends there and enjoyed years of weekend fun, spending time at Lonsdale Avenue on Scott Pond, the cabin on Highland Avenue, song, dance, jambalaya stew porta potties at the Cajun Festival. Ew. With the music and the friends that he loved so much. Chris married Kim, and she pulled him by his ear, kicking and silently screaming all the way to California. It was one of the most difficult decisions to leave his life and friends in Massachusetts. But then he opened his practice on Main Street in Placerville, and life blossomed. Many of you met Chris during this part of his life. He integrated himself into the Placerville community and never looked back, and wasn't that fortunate for us. Chris and Kim bought the house on Pony Express Trail, and there were many dinner parties there with friends, lots of laughter, excellent food and wine. There were snow sculpture contests, the building of an igloo after a deep snow, painting by moonlight, and much sarcasm and wit at the results. These were the days of establishing his practice and developing of professional relationships that became long-time friendships. When Chris found out he was going to be a father, he was stunned. Being a father was a terrifying prospect until the day he held Julia in his arms. Then Jackson came along, and he felt life was complete. Chris was a loving and attentive father. As the children grew up, he accompanied them on mission trips and chaperoned most of their school field trips. After Chris and Kim separated, Chris continued to make many new friends in Placerville. He loved having gatherings at his home for baseball and football games, or just for the fun of it. Chris's parents had retired to Florida, and many Christmases were spent enjoying their company, the warm pool and the delicious mangoes. Chris was very artistic and loved to draw and paint. The evidence of that behind me. He was notorious for finishing pictures that Kim would start, and she will tell you they were greatly improved by his contribution. Chris's kindness knew few bounds. He and his friends set up temporary homeless shelter for the local homeless so that they would have a place to sleep at least once a week. He helped at events and charities for the school, including recently donning a goofy hat and reading Dr. Seuss stories to the children. He was involved with Julia's Pathfinder Club and went on several camping trips with them. He went caving with Julia at Lava Bed National Park. He went to Peru, Guatemala, and Chile chaperoning the kids on field trips. He participated in medical outreaches and helped build churches. One of the most important trips he made was with the Pathfinders to Oshkosh, Wisconsin. This cross-country adventure was where Chris established relationships with friends that ended up being deep and lasting. Chris's passion for history never ended, and he was a voracious reader. He loved poetry and had a great enthusiasm for music, classical, rock, country, blues, everything. He never stopped loving the outdoors, hiking, kayaking, and of course skiing. He enjoyed skiing with Jackson and Jackson's friends. He enjoyed taking all the kids out to dinner after a great day of hitting the slopes. They remember lots of cutting up and laughter at Jackson and his friends' expense. He saw humor in life and made sure to point it out, much to the joy or sometimes chagrin of those around him. He loved going to the Red Sox, A's, and Giants games with his friends. There are many stories about tailgating before the game. Jimmy. He loved the Patriots and making bets on them, but there was never money involved. He would bet for sandwiches. If he lost, he would buy you a sandwich of your choice, but he didn't buy many sandwiches. He loved board games, and there were many amusing game nights. He loved to cook for his kids and his friends and was very good at it. He was an entertainer on many levels. One of the kids' fond memories is sitting out on the Pony Express watching the wagon train go by. He adored animals, especially his dogs Guinness, Mamu, Daisy, and his very old cat Bella. Chris made many friends during his daily walk with Daisy as he made his way down to the bank on Main Street. A 10-minute walk often turned into great conversations that resulted in strong relationships with the community around him. One of his joys was finishing up his business day and then having dinner with friends at a local restaurant. Being friends with all the attorneys in town had its benefits, lots of camaraderie, jokes at each other's expense, and the highlight at the end of each year, the annual rowdy Christmas party. Chris was blessed to have seen his beautiful daughter, Julia, marry an amazing man, Patrick McGee, and his son Jackson become a handsome young man and be accepted to medical school. We have all been touched by his kindness, his humor, and his wisdom. He's going to leave a void that few can fill, and we will miss him always.